the Distressed Princess. I'm Rhonda. I'm very glad that you joined me today because it's sort of a different day. We're doing something kind of different today. It's called the Try It Tuesday Challenge. And this challenge is hosted by Sammie over at Unicorn Dust Designs. Her co-host this month is Teresa B at Teresa B DIY. So for the Try It Tuesday Challenge, what we do is find other crafters that we love their DIYs, and then we try to make them ourselves. And that's the biggest form of compliment, I think. The links for the hosts will be in my description box below, along with a link to the playlist. So have fun jumping around to everyone's videos and seeing what they tried. Look at this cute vase that Sammie made over at Unicorn Dust Designs. That's going to be my first craft that I'm going to try to make today. This is the bucket that I'm using. I believe it's the same bucket that Sammie used. Hers did not have the rope at the top, and so I'm removing the rope from the top of the bucket. It was really easy just to pull it right off the top. And now I'm going to use the method that Sammie used to make this look like a rusty bucket. And she used the Waverly Antique Wax, and she also used Waverly in the color Mineral, which I did not have. So I'm using this Deco Art chalk paint from Michaels in the color Artifact, which is the same kind of gray color. Now she had a big fat chunky brush that she applied with, which I don't have, so I'm just using a little stencil brush from the Dollar Tree. So I took a good amount of the antique wax and I'm going to mix that gray chalk paint with it to get a more chocolate milk color. It may actually look a little more like mud than chocolate milk. If your chocolate milk looks like that, that's too much chocolate. So Sammie said to kind of pounce this paint onto the bucket. Don't regular brush it on. You want to pounce it around, and that will give it its rusty effect. Next comes the part with the coffee. She coffee stained her picture of the rabbit. And so I brewed up a cup of coffee. Didn't even get to drink it, that's sad. Anyhow, I brewed up a cup of coffee and I've got my printout of my rabbit, which is a different rabbit than what Sammie used because I didn't see at first that sweet Sammie did link her rabbit picture in the description box of her original video, which will be linked in my description box. I didn't see that until later. So this is a different rabbit, a different printout, and I wasn't entirely sure on how she went about doing this coffee staining. So I submerged the whole picture. I only left the picture in the coffee for maximum 2 minutes, and when I took it out, it was blue. And so that's not right. So here is take 2. This is when I went back to see what Sammie actually did, and I saw that she had a link for this rabbit in her description box. So I printed that, and maybe it makes a difference in what picture you use. I don't know, but I recommend go down in my description box, watch Sammie's original video, and get the link for this rabbit. And maybe you won't have the trouble I did the first go around. This time when I put the rabbit in the coffee, I just decided to let it kind of sit on top and try not to submerge the whole thing because I'm thinking maybe the ink got messed up when it went completely underwater. So that could be it too. I'm not sure what actually turned the rabbit blue, but this worked for me. So this is how I would do it again, and this is how I would recommend for you to do it. Just let it sit on top, and it only took 1 to 2 minutes. Gave me a good enough yellow color that I liked. The next step is to take a heat gun or a hair dryer. In my case, I have a hair dryer, and dry your bunny. And as you're doing this drying process, the paper naturally wants to kind of wrinkled up, which is good. I know Sammie kind of crinkled hers up a little extra, and I felt like I really didn't need to do that because my paper wrinkled up pretty good on its own through the drying. I don't know what gave her the idea to put this bunny picture in coffee, but it was genius. It was just absolutely brilliant because now this looks like an old label, which is what Sammie intended. Now, the next part was she wanted the edges of her picture to look, old and worn like a label, so she tore around the edges. And I don't know how. The simplest things are always so hard for me. She tore her picture so precisely, so perfectly, and I wasn't able to be so precise. And even though I was trying to be very careful, I wasn't tearing my picture quite as straight as Sammie was able to tear hers. And if you'll notice up there in the corner of the screen, I had to put Piper's bed up near my workplace, trying to encourage him to lay down and not be right under my camera. I'm trying to go by memory what Sammie used exactly in her video. I think she used Mod Podge to attach her bunny to the bucket. I'm not positive, so I can't say for sure. You'll have to go check her video, but I'm using Mod Podge decoupage. This big thing of decoupage that I got at Walmart a long time ago. It's lasted me forever, and that's what I'm using to attach my bunny to the bucket. And the next thing Sammie did was to go back over the edges of her bunny picture with more of that brown paint concoction. And that's another genius thing that she did, because when you go back over the edges, it really blends it into the bucket and makes it look like it was a label made just for this bucket. And it also covers up my multitude of mishaps while I was trying to tear the edges of this picture, and it just looks a lot more straight. It just looks better when you go around the edges like this. Now Sammie had burlap, like actual burlap, big thick burlap to put around the top of her vase, but I didn't have any of that, so I'm using this burlap ribbon that came from the Dollar General store, which I know you can also get this at the Dollar Tree. And this one's a little bit, if you buy the one at the Dollar General, it's a little bit more gray in color than brown, but it's sort of an eye trick. It just depends on what you put with it. If you put it with something gray, it looks more gray. If you put it with something brown, like this bucket, it will look more brown. So for my purposes, it worked just fine. And I used hot glue to attach it to the top edge of the bucket. And then I folded down the excess at the top and hot glued it on the inside of the bucket. Now the decorating of the bucket is done and it's time to fill it, and I'm using just whatever plastic bags I had laying around to fill most of the bucket. I used 2 plastic bags. And now I'm using Spanish moss from the Dollar Tree. I'm stealing it out of another container that I had that isn't currently holding any flowers, and I'm going to use it to cover my plastic bags. And this stuff is such a mess, really. It might be a good idea maybe to put a trash bag or something underneath that you could just wad it all up at the end of your messing with this, because look what a mess it makes. The flowers I'm using in my vase all came from the Dollar Tree, even the grass. I love them. It's lilacs and lilies and the grass, and I thought they were very Eastery and perfect for this bucket. So everybody, let's thank Sammie for this really cute Easter bucket idea. The next Easter DIY comes from Lemon Avenue Life over on Instagram, and I will link her Instagram account in my description box. And she made this bunny wreath using these Dollar Tree wreaths. Now these wreaths sometimes are not perfectly round shapes, so I'm just trying to bend them and make them a little more round. I choose the one that I think is more perfectly round, not perfect, but rounder for the bunny face. And the other one I'll use for the bunny ears. The one that you use for the ears, you cut the twine that kind of holds it together and unwrap it a good little ways, and you'll see that the wreath will start to come apart. I'm not exactly sure how Lemon Avenue got her wreath bunny ears apart, but I just kind of broke it in 2 pieces, and then I used wire cutters to cut the more stubborn pieces of grapevine. Then once I had the wreath in 2 pieces for 2 ears, I took the twine that was originally on it and kind of wrapped it all back up. Then you form it into a bunny ear shape, and the next part is to use that twine along with some other twine that I had to try to tie it together. And I honestly can't tell you exactly how this is done. Just wrap and wrap and tie and wrap and tie some more until the bunny ear stays in place. If you're not familiar with Lemon Avenue Life on Instagram, she makes the most beautiful things. She is one of my favorite accounts to follow. Everything that she does turns out so stinking pretty. You will not be disappointed, so go check her out. And then I tied a knot and hot glued the jute string in the back of the ear. Now I did the whole process again to make the second bunny ear, and it's time to attach the bunny ears. Now, Lemon Life did an IGTV little short video on how she did this, and so I'm going by what I saw in the video. And she tied the ear to the wreath, which is the face, and then she wrapped the jute string around and around and around to secure it down. When the bunny ear is held tight enough that it will stand up on its own, that's when you know to stop wrapping. And I took the end piece of the jute string and tied it around another piece of the jute. I went underneath and made a loop and tied it together. Then I did the whole same process again for the second bunny ear. I loved the way that Lemon Avenue had her bunny decorated, so I wanted to try to duplicate that as exactly as I could. So I'm trying to use the same color flowers that she had. Mine came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm using these pink roses. And I'm just tucking them down inside the jute string and the grapevine wreath. I didn't even have to use hot glue. I'm also using some of this greenery that's kind of like lamb's ear, but it's not. It came from Dollar General store and it was only $1. And I'm putting that in with the roses. Next are the white berries, which I didn't have the ones that she used in her little video, but I did have these left over from a fall pick, and so I cut them off of the fall pick to use with my Easter bunny. And then I cut some more of the pink roses to put on the other side to balance it all out. By the time I got all the flowers and the greenery into place, then I did have to go back and hot glue those berries down. And what a cute bunny. Thank you so much, Lemon Avenue, for showing us how to do this. The last Easter DIY today comes from Holly over at Hot Humble Pie. She made this really cute bunny decoration, and I will link that video in my description box below. It wasn't hard to find the printout. All I did was Google Watercolor Bunny, and I was able to find this very picture that Holly used. You will also need the wood square planks from the Dollar Tree and I show more than 2 here, but 2 paint sticks. Then just cut each bunny out individually. And again, I'm going by memory of what the original video had in it. I'm not certain what kind of paint she used. I'm using Waverly white chalk paint just because I have the rest of this that I need to get used up so that I can get on with using my Rust-Oleum, because I really like Rust-Oleum better. I only used 1 coat on the 3 wooden squares and the 2 paint sticks, and I only painted one side. Now I'm using Waverly truffle chalk paint to go around the edges of the wooden squares. Now I know that Holly did do this in her video. She watered down her paint a little bit to make it more like a watercolor to match the watercolor bunnies. And at first when I did this, I had too much water. So you'll see I go back and dip my brush into more paint, and it works out a little better for me. After I painted the edges of the squares, then I wanted to dull down that bright white middle, and so I'm trying to get the excess brown paint off of this paintbrush, but there was so much of it. I wound up having to get a paper towel, and I wiped off almost all of that brown paint so that it would be a very, very light distressing across these white wood planks. And then I put some of the brown paint onto the paint sticks so that they would match. I think that Holly might have put the brown paint onto her project at the end. You'll have to go and watch her video. Click the link in my description. She does the most awesome, pretty farmhouse crafts you've ever seen in your life. You'll love her. And here is the layout of how we're going to put the wood squares on the paint sticks. To assemble your pieces, first lay down your squares and then put your paint sticks on top. I almost did it backwards. Like I wanted to put the paint sticks in front of the squares. That would have been wrong. So I know Holly used wood glue and hot glue to attach her pieces. I didn't have wood glue, so I'm using this Loctite Power Grab all-purpose adhesive, and it's one of those that it takes a while for it to set, so you will use some kind of adhesive like this or wood glue for the permanent hold, and then the hot glue for the immediate hold. Next, it's time to put the bunnies on the wood planks. And oh my gosh, I love these bunnies. They're so stinking cute. This was so much fun. And so I decided which bunny I wanted to go on which plank. And then I'm using that same decoupage that I used in the first project to glue them down. Isn't this the cutest? I'm in love with this. I'm in love with all of these projects. I'm so glad Sammie decided to do this Try It Tuesday thing. Now, Holly did add a hanger to the back of hers, so I'm going to add a hanger too. And we're just using jute string and hot glue and a popsicle stick. Look at these sweet little bunnies. Thank you so much, Holly, for showing us how to make this nice Easter decoration. Thanks for watching today, everyone. Thanks to everyone that inspired these DIYs. Thanks to my host, Sammie Veltri, and Teresa B. DIY. Make sure to check out their channels and the link to the playlist in my description box. Bye.